Dragonlance creator Margaret Weis is trying to soothe fears of Wizards of the Coast ruining the franchise. Roll this up over at fandompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. Back on October 22nd, Dragonlance creators Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman were photographed next to Joe Manganiello, and the photo was shared to social media by Dan Ayub, the senior vice president and head of Dungeons & Dragons franchise at Wizards of the Coast. You can see that photo right there. Ayub wrote this: "When I took over D&D, I had some very specific folks I wanted to bring back to the table. Today I have the honor of welcoming these folks back home. Amazing things ahead. Joe Manganiello, Margaret Weis, Tracy Hickman, and then obviously Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons & Dragons. On top of this, Manganiello shared his own with just Hickman and Weis, and he said, 'We're back.'" You can see the photo right there. The photos appear to be a tease that Manganiello's live-action Dragonlance project might be back in the works. The actor had previously announced back in March 2023 during the Dungeons & Dragons 2023 announcement showcase that he had been developing a live-action Dragonlance project. He said this at the time: "Ultimately, it was my love of Dragonlance that opened the door for my involvement with the brand, working tirelessly to develop a live-action version of the Dragonlance novels that have never been far from my thoughts throughout all these years since I first read them. Unfortunately, by February 2024, it appeared those hopes were dashed when Manganiello informed comicbook.com Dragonlance is not a property Wizards of the Coast are interested in developing further currently. As for what his plans were, he shared this: "What I had planned for the first season was mind-blowing. I want to make the Dragonlance show because I want to see it, and I just want to feel that excited and electric about something. The characters, like the casting, I have a lookbook with over 1,000 pages, but it's not what you expect. The design concepts I had for the world, for the armor, for the swords, I had a fresh take on what the dragons were going to look like. It was going to be nothing like anyone has ever seen. And these beloved characters that have been read by," I think Tracy said there's 35 million copies in circulation. So obviously, some of that there is a little bit concerning, talking about completely redesigning Dragonlance. And I think Dragonlance, the aesthetics are part of what makes Dragonlance unique. So redesigning it does not make you optimistic about what his plans were, right? I mean, what have we been saying time and time again, year after year after year? Stick to the source material and you will find success. I will continue to repeat that. I will continue to beat that dead horse. And not the only one who is doing that, right? With the photo circulating, a number of Dragonlance fans made it clear they were uninterested in anything being added to the property. Kevin Lamb posted this: "This is the only official Dragonlance I'll ever need, and I have zero faith in anything Wizards of the Coast announces, no matter who they take a photo with." Obviously sharing his collection of Dragonlance books. You've got Chronicles, you've got the Twins there, you've got some Atlas books, etc. Lots of really, really good stuff right there as part of Kevin Lamb's collection there. We also had original Dungeons & Dragons creator Robert J. Kuntz chime in. He says, "I respect Margaret and Tracy, but I have nothing positive to say about Joe, who was involved in the Dungeons & Dragons doc and excluded all of the remaining originators of the hobby from it. And at the same time, when all of the founders are being slandered and vilified in their making of D&D book." He later added, "Manganiello is buddies with John Peterson and the Whitweir brothers. Long story that goes back to the failed D&D doc. They form an elitist cabal of celebrity D&Ders who have co-opted D&D for their own purposes." You can also see that Kevin Lamb shared that he was blocked by Joe when he said that we do not need to destigmatize D&D. I think Manganiello said something of that sort. Kevin Lamb said, "No, we don't need that." Obviously, pushing that kind of woke crap back when that was very trendy. Numerous others shared their hesitation at anything being done with Dragonlance, given Wizards of the Coast's recent track record and promotion of wokeness. Nevertheless, Weis attempted to assuage those fears. To one, she wrote, "Never tell me the odds." This person obviously said, as you can see on the screen, "What good could they do when the entire company and the audience it's cultivated hates them?" Another criticized the company's woke policies, saying less white guys. And then Noble Shield says, "Yeah, that's a directive they give their artists apparently." And then Weis responded saying, "So since we featured a black man in Chronicles," and Noble Shield here responded saying, "Nothing wrong with that, but the fact Wizards of the Coast's direction to artists is try to not have too many white males is, in my honest opinion, political nonsense." Indeed, it is. It is part of woke DEI ideology, which I have been campaigning against for years. not only here on the Trent Report YouTube channel, but when I was the editor-in-chief at Bounding Into Comics, as well as that Park Place, and now obviously at Phantom Pulse. Lamb shared more of his concerns. He wrote this: "It's not your part that I'm worried about, it's that company." Obviously responding to Margaret Weis. And Weis tried to, again, like I said, assuage those fears, saying new sheriff in town. Weis also responded to an individual questioning what type of audience any new projects might be aimed at. She said, "Our audience," this person said, "new Wizards of the Coast leadership, sure, but how much freedom are they giving you to create and ditch the modern nonsense? Is it going to have the original flavor, or will it be modernized to appeal to a new audience?" Again, as I said, she said, "our audience." When another indicated he was uninterested in Wizards of the Coast's woke politics, Weis cheekily replied, "Takhisis is into politics." So this person says, "I love Joe and the others. Dragonlance was a huge part of my childhood, but until you guys drop the political activism, I can't spend money with you. I love to buy official books again. So if you ever decide to stop playing politics and just be gamers, I'll be waiting." And then obviously, as I said, she said Takhisis is into politics, being a little bit cheeky there. And then finally, we also got that they are going to be kind of working. Well, actually, hold on. There's one more here. This guy says, "You guys burned all your bridges, so unless you are releasing a de-woke version of Dungeons & Dragons, you might as well not be bothered, or might as well not bothered." And Margaret Weis actually said, "Stay tuned." So that is, I think, very interesting right there that she said, "Stay tuned." Obviously, a little bit of a misspelling right there. But I find that extraordinarily intriguing, especially responding to a guy who's asking for a de-woke version of Dungeons & Dragons. So maybe there is significant change happening with the new sheriff in town. But again, a lot of people not buying into it. I'm extraordinarily skeptical as well, given the fact that they are continuing to push woke ideology in their recent product offerings. And anytime someone's saying, "Oh, it takes a couple years for that to come out," well, what do we see a couple years from now? They're still doing the same thing and haven't seen really any kind of changes. But then we also got this right here that it looks like there might be new reprints of Dragonlance books in the works. This person asks, "It's too bad that it's almost impossible to find any of those books today," obviously referring to that collection that Kevin Lamb shared. And the person said, "It's not like Hasbro is going to faithfully reissue any of them." And Margaret Weis actually said, "We're working on it." So there might be some reissues of some of the old Dragonlance books that have gone out of print that are a lot harder to get than, say, the Chronicles and the Twin series, some of the more popular books, but looking to try to get some of those other books that might be a little bit more difficult to find back in print. So I think that's good news too there. So there is some good things to take away from this. I think there's some interesting things to take away as well, but clearly a lot of people not really happy with the state of Dungeons & Dragons, feel like the bridges have been burned. And then also not really happy with this kind of tease with Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, maybe thinking that it is trying to lure people back with them, given the fact that Joe is involved. And he obviously kind of slighted a number of people in his previous work with Dungeons and Dragons. So we will see what happens. Obviously, something to continue to watch that I'll be paying attention to. Dragonlance was a big part of my childhood. Read a ton of the books. I would go to the library after high school every single day. That's actually where my bus dropped me off. And I just dug through all of those books, read the Chronicles, read the Twin series, read the Raceland standalone, read the War of the Souls stuff with Mina, read all of that stuff, read the Knights of Solamnia books. I forget who wrote those, but those were really good too. There was like a trilogy of those. I mean, all of that stuff, I read all of that stuff, was absolutely fantastic stuff. I devoured it. Thought it was so interesting. I think the ending of the Twins trilogy is fantastic with the way that it ends. Kind of just shows that pride and ego is a losing cause, and that there is something about the divine that that deserves our respect and awe. And then I also really like how there's just obviously the battle between good and evil, but then you also have the character of Raceland, who is kind of struggling in that battle, trying to forge his own way, and finds out that maybe that's not the right path to go. finds that out the extraordinarily difficult way. So really loved a lot of these books growing up as a kid. So I am interested to see what they're doing, if they're going to be writing any more books, if they're going to be working on this television show that Joe said he was working on. We'll see what happens, but definitely something to keep our eyes on, something I will be keeping my eyes on. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?